Hello everyone, and welcome to Half Earth Day 2020. I'm Paula Ehrlich, President and CEO of the E.O. Wilson Biodiversity Foundation and lead of the Half Earth Project. Half Earth at its core is about the relationship between people and nature. We'll be traveling across this relationship throughout the day, at times more focused on the natural science that informs Half Earth, and at other times on appealing to our common humanity as part of nature and galvanizing action. We proceed in awareness that social and environmental inequities and violence against Black and Brown people and their communities hold strong implications for what we do and how we do it. Before we begin our Half Earth Day journey, I want to acknowledge specifically the relationship of Indigenous people with their ancestral lands, the exemplary tenor of that relationship, and Half Earth's imperative to attend to that relationship with intention. In the opening session, Ed and I are sitting in his state of residence and on the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Massachusetts people, who for countless years before the arrival of Europeans hunted, fished, cultivated, celebrated, and prospered on these lands and waters. I encourage you to get to know them and to seek out the Indigenous history of the place you live. The Half Earth Project honors the wisdom of the traditional owners of the lands and waters we aim to protect and their ancient ways of seeing and experiencing nature. In the spirit of the oral tradition of the Blackfoot, we aim to honor the flash of the firefly in the night, the breath of the buffalo in the wintertime, and the little shadow that runs across the grass and loses itself in the sunset. We aim to restore and protect life. We thank our Indigenous communities for their historic stewardship of life, their critical role in reaffirming and repairing our relationship with it, and their present and future partnership.
If the thing you love is being destroyed, it attracts your attention. So the world is waiting to be explored. I've been to places around the world, from New Guinea to New Caledonia to Australia to South America to the Amazon to other parts of the world. What I saw was not only the variety of life I was interested in studying, but destruction. I see the world descending into a huge mess, but with still infinite potentiality.
Hey Ed, welcome to Half Earth Day.
Well, I'm delighted to be here. I'm honored.
We're in the middle of a pandemic. There are wildfires and huge storms that seem to be a result of some extraordinary threats to our environment. We have those three problems: climate change, water shortage, and biodiversity loss, the extinction crisis. And what's unique about that third, the loss of biodiversity, is that once those species are gone, they're gone forever, right? And you've said half of all species could be gone by the end of the century.
That's right. The loss of biodiversity is the one global crisis that's irreversible. We'll reset the climate, we can do that. And we can certainly solve the freshwater problem. But with biodiversity, the amount we reduce the variety of life around us and all through the world will not be restorable, except maybe by synthetic new species created in the future, but it's not the same thing.
It is becoming more obvious that caring for the environment and human health is going to call for the best of our science and ingenuity, and also a strong sense of compassion and moral compass. What are you thinking about how we can lead scientific innovation in this moment in a new way that really can solve the problem?
The way I've conceived it and tried to think about it every day, is that for scientists, the opportunities to make discoveries, to create new syntheses of information that's going to be important, is very strong in the subject of environment. I mentioned earlier that ecosystems, biology, in fact, I'm inventing that term right now as we speak, and we'll be using it later. Ecosystems biology doesn't exist in a really well-formulated content. So the scientists will find the environment, and particularly biological diversity, a very promising new field to explore and make their way into. For the public, it'll be rather comparable to the identification of diseases, the causes of diseases, and finding the way to combat them.
I mean, it's interesting that you bring up that parallel. First, there's identifying the goal that's relevant, right? Half Earth. If we protect half the Earth, we can safeguard the bulk of biodiversity, right? If our goal is to cure cancer, though, just like half Earth, it's important how we do that, right? We have a noble goal, a moonshot. And that, as a simple, compelling idea, is one that has a lot of traction.
Every human problem that involves biology has to be solved first by understanding the problem fully. And in the case of biodiversity reduction, we have to find out what is being reduced. And it's amazing how little we know concerning the living environment. And we should set out as a major human goal to locate, identify, and understand every species on Earth, all 10 million species, if that's the right number. And this means, in practical terms, that we need a large population of specialists on different kinds of organisms. We need to attract young people coming into science and wanting to study biology. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, I was fascinated by butterflies, and I started collecting butterflies. When I became fascinated by the outdoors, I decided I wanted to do this the rest of my life. So I made a commitment as a youngster, the kind that teenagers can make if they're fortunate and have the ability to actually fulfill the ambitions that emanate from them. There's an ant. I made up my mind I would go to that university and major in biology with the aim of doing, as an adult, the same things I enjoyed doing so much as a boy, except in a more sophisticated and elaborated manner. I wonder often how many times a career has been determined that way. And I did, and it worked out that way, all the way to the PhD at Harvard, and then a professorship at Harvard. The enjoyment and the self-empowerment to be acquired by each individual are infinite. And that's the way it should be looked at. And it's so attractive, or should be so attractive, to young scientists coming in.
Yeah, I mean, what you're evoking is a sense of adventure, right?
That's what it is, it's an adventure. That's what nature has to offer us. What is nature anyway, but the rest of life? Mother Nature is a goddess of all that beyond human control. I think we worship her for reasons that we don't understand. We have a kind of innate love of natural events and natural environment, then what we're doing is renewing an acquaintance with our own origins and our own ancestry. I think we ought to really be able to see that the understanding and the love of nature is an aspect of human mental development that is urgent, and urgent for the survival of our species, each other, and so on.
And sometimes we don't really fully understand how the loss of species here might affect a whole ecosystem and cause losses of species elsewhere. It's really that understanding of all the species that's going to be the major way that we understand what those interactions are and how we can best care for our planet.
Exactly. We know that there are two aspects to conservation. One of them is just plain, obvious impact of human activities on the environment as a whole and all the species in it. And burning of the Amazon forest underway as an example. But the other way is to understand what altering the environment can do, what really happens when you put a road through an otherwise undisturbed forest, or you allow fishing or the other recreation at a particular lake, and maybe just a few species are affected and they become rare or extinct. You wouldn't know about that unless you knew what the species were and known and what's known about them in science. Once a species goes extinct, as you just said, we really need a science of ecosystems, which we do not have.
Your message is one not only of hope, but it's also one of trust, the implicit trust that within ourselves we're going to find a path forward. You said once famously that if we can bring the rest of life with us through this bottleneck, life on Earth could be a paradise.
That's right. There's no reason why we can't, by one means or other, stabilize the human population, preferably let it drop, decline a little bit to make life for everybody a little easier, and settle in on this planet in a smaller, less injurious environment, and make fuller use of the beautiful, the intricate construction and the beauty of the natural systems that we have around us. In other words, it's a great place to live, if we decide to make it so. If we develop a better knowledge and sense of what makes the world and how it came to what it is, and what, therefore, it could become, maybe, and then that we have so much about it to discover and to take pleasure from and to live and feel security in, that planet Earth is actually still in a very good shape. I'm seeing things about this environment that I've just gone into that are potentially new, and they're interesting. The forest that no one has ever studied birds in before, the mountaintop that has a kind of butterfly on it that's not found farther down the mountain, and so on. All these things give reality and depth to your vision of what is lying before you and what you are among the first to be exploring. The more enjoyment that you get of it, the more ways you want to express what's the beauty of what you see, and the excitement of what you learn has a special name for it. One word: poetry. That's what the world has to offer us. The whole series of mysteries, of possible discoveries, of phenomena, of unexpected events, and objects and things and living organisms and so on. An infinitude almost on this planet, waiting out there to be enjoyed. There's so many of this in the world waiting to be explored and savored and described